Hello everyone, it's Sarah, and today's video is a two-in-one kind of deal because, as I anticipated, I couldn't film last week because everything was just really stressful and uni started again and stuff. So now I'm going to kind of film two videos in one this week. And the first thing I want to do is to show you my TBR for the Re-Read-a-Thon, which takes place from the 18th to the 24th of March. I will leave the Twitter link to the Re-Read-a-Thon in the description box down below for all the info if you're interested in joining. And the second video in this video kinda is of course this week's Top 5 Wednesday. But I will start with my TBR. There is a total of 4 challenges, if I remember correctly, in the Read-a-thon, and honestly I'm not gonna try to do all of the challenges because it's just impossible for me. I think I'll be lucky if I can read one book in that week, but I still have books for 3 of the challenges just so I can then decide which one I want to read when the time comes. The first challenge is kind of no-brainer, and that is to reread an old favorite. And if anyone knows me even a little bit, you might know which favorite I am going to read, and that is Anne Bishop's Black Jewel series. It's been 2 years since I've read any books from this series, so I'm definitely gonna have to read one of the 9 books. I have not 100% decided which one yet. Probably either the last book or the 5th one, which is The Invisible Ring, but we'll just see. The second reading challenge is to reread a new favorite, and I was already pretty sure from the beginning that I want to reread one of Brandon Sanderson's books and that I want to reread either Warbreaker or Elantris, but when I went to my bookshelf just now, 5 minutes earlier, I noticed that I forgot that I had borrowed Warbreaker to a friend. So if I'm gonna reread a new favorite, Elantris it is. So I did only read this after I started my channel, so it's quite a new favorite. Actually, in fact, really, like, I read it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think. And I'm excited to reread again, especially since the last time I read it, I still had no idea about the Cosmere, so it'll be interesting going into this again, knowing all the stuff I know now. The third challenge that I do not have a book for would have been to reread a book, to give it a second chance, and I'm just not feeling that right now. I'm still kind of struggling with reading and not reading that much, so I don't really want to read a book where I'm like meh. And the last challenge is to reread a book to prepare for a new release, like a continuation of a series or something like that, and I don't really have any new releases that I want to prepare for. However, I have a series where I have read the first 2 books and reread the first book, and where I still have to read the last 2 books, but I have to reread the second book still, so I know what's going on. And that is the Pelennor series by Alison Croghan, and the second book is The Riddle. I did reread the naming 2 years ago, I think, 1.5, 2 years ago, something like that. And I did start rereading The Riddle, but I kind of stopped because my reading slump got in the way, I think that was it. So now I wanna reread it so I can read the 3rd and 4th book in the series. So next on to Top 5 Wednesday. Again, also all the Top 5 Wednesday information will be in the description box down below if you want to join in. So this week's topic is our top 5 children's books to read as an adult. And the way I interpreted the topic is like books that we read as a child or that are meant for children, although I kind of like blurred the lines between children's books and middle grade, so there might be some more middle grade stuff in there. But anyways, books that we read as a child that would be interesting to reread as an adult just for different reasons. And the first book I have is Tanit by Cheryl Jordan, and this book is a kind of story about a couple of Native American communities, and especially one woman or girl who is adopted into one of those communities and kind of has the role of the outsider, and I can just say that when I read it, I think with 12 or something, I bawled my eyes out, and I honestly wouldn't even know if I would consider it a children's book, since, I mean, the writing style, as far as I can remember, was more for children, but the topics this book dealt with are definitely something that you can understand a lot more when you read it as an adult, because there's this whole thing with like peer pressure, bullying, a sense of belonging, and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, but it's a really good book. I think I reread it again with 18 and cried like a little bitch again. The second book is not a specific book, but just kind of a type of book, but I chose Harry Potter for that because I feel like that's, even though it's not that type of book personally for me, but I feel like for most people in my generation, this is the book that is this the most for them, and that is just rereading a children's book that formed you either as a reader, as a person in your life, whatever, that just took up a huge role in your childhood, and just rereading that again as an adult. Next, I have something that I think a lot of people will agree with me, and that is reading fairy tales when you're an adult. Fairy tales very classically are for children, and I think especially if you're not from Austria, a lot of the times you are not reading the original fairy tales when you grow up. So you kind of get the toned down version of Cinderella if you don't have a mom like me who reads you the version where her stepsisters cut off their toes and heels. But anyway, it's just rereading something that is such a childhood staple and such a childhood classic in the original form as an adult is very interesting a lot of times. I know that most of my viewers come from America, and I don't know if you know this author in America, but kind of the childhood author in Austria, even though she's Swedish, is Astrid Lindgren. And you might know a funny little character by the name of Pippi Longstocking, and Astrid Lindgren is actually the author of Pippi Longstocking. And it's another book that I think is quite interesting to reread again, because it was written quite a long time ago, and I think 50s, 60s, maybe a bit later. Anyways, a lot of what we would now call political correctness did not exist back then, and I have a little sister who is 7 years old, and my dad read to her Pippi Longstocking a couple of months ago, and he said I purposefully changed a lot of the stuff that was written because it's just the way that a lot of, especially black people, are depicted and called is not very political correct. I mean, there's no bad intention behind it. So it's not like the depiction is rooted in racism, or like, I mean, it's rooted in racism, of course, but not in a sense of superiority. And they have edited versions of Pippi Longstocking now, but if you can get an old version, like even from my childhood before they edited it, I think you'd find it very interesting. And the last book that I want to talk about that I definitely want to reread, that I plan on rereading, is Moo Moo by Michael Ende. Again, this was a book that was written, I think, in the 70s. I'm not sure. Who needs research? And when reading this book, or when thinking about a story, it deals with a lot of the problems of today's society. And the story follows Moo Moo, who is a little girl who is basically homeless and orphaned, but she doesn't really see it that way. She just lives in her little home and just enjoys everything, doesn't go to school, and just asks questions, is very curious. And one day the so-called grey man, I don't know if that's the translation in English, but in German it's graue Männer, so that translates to grey man, come to her city, and they are stealing time. They are time stealers, and the way they do it is that they go to everyone and show them how much more efficient they could be working and how much more stuff they could do if they didn't talk that much while working, if they didn't enjoy work that much, although they don't say it like that, but if they don't take their time while working and a lot of stuff like that. So it's kind of asking a lot of questions about a world that is getting faster and faster, and it's of course something that we still deal with. So I just think, even though it's a children's book, children only see the story and they see this fight of Moo Moo against the grey man, and it's interesting and stuff, but there's actually a lot of philosophical questions hidden behind those questions that Moo Moo asks a lot. And why is everyone suddenly working so much faster? Why does everyone want to save time? And yeah, so I really want to reread this again and see what I remember, how it changed for me. Again, my summary was kind of all over the place right now because I think I last read it when I was 9 or something. But it's still a very interesting story, and I think it asks important questions. And it's definitely one of those children's books that you can enjoy as a child, but you don't understand as a child. So yeah, even if you never read it as a child, please go ahead and read it. And also, Michael Ende, if the name doesn't tell you anything, he was also the guy who wrote The Never-Ending Story. Like, not the movie, but who wrote the original book, The Never-Ending Story. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave comments down below. Tell me if you're planning on joining the Reread-a-thon. Tell me what children's books you would recommend to read as an adult. All the links to my social media, Twitter, Goodreads, Tumblr, Instagram and stuff are down below. And I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!